Hey, today we are covering the second miracle of Jesus during his ministry. Again, I feel like he probably did a lot of miracles before this, but we're going off of John, and he says this is the second miracle, at least um, in this area. So this is our next one we're covering. This will be quite a bit shorter than that last one. Had a lot to say on that last one, but I think all the ones going forward will be quite a bit shorter, which you probably already know because you saw the time before you clicked on this. Anyway, we're going to John chapter 4, down to 46. 46. So Jesus turned water into wine, took care of some other business, came back to that same area. Um, 46. So Jesus came again into Cana of Galilee, where he made the water wine. And there was a certain nobleman whose son was sick at Capernaum. So Jesus is back in Cana. This is back in the little town where he turned water into wine. And a nobleman came from Capernaum. Now, Capernaum's far away. His son is sick. His son is in Capernaum. The nobleman came to Cana because he knew that Jesus was going to be there. I don't know how he knew that. Um, yeah, I voted today. Just saw that. Sorry, squirrel. But Capernaum's pretty far away. Depending on where you look, some places say Capernaum is 17 miles away, 20, 25, 28 miles away. It's quite a bit, quite far away. And again, it's not like we're driving. If I could hop in my car and drive, 25 miles, that's not bad. This is a long way to drive, but they're not driving. Long way to walk, or however they got there. And I just want to talk about that distance for a little bit. I don't know exactly how far it is. There's probably some rough terrain, up and down, whatever. Whether it's 17 miles or 28, I'm going to say 26 miles. I'm going to say it's the distance of a marathon between on the road between these two places. And that was a long way to go, a long way. And the nobleman, they think, we don't know who the nobleman was, but there's a chance he was a Roman. So it's not like he was a Jew waiting for the Messiah. He is a Roman who has heard of the miracles that Jesus is performing. And he goes there because he's heard of these miracles. Now, this man did a marathon to meet Jesus. He might not believe Jesus is the Messiah. He might not know what a Messiah is. He might not know any of this stuff. But he had enough faith to travel a marathon to meet Jesus. Now, I've done some marathons, not fast at all. I'm like the slowest marathon person ever. Um, my first marathon, they actually closed the marathon before I was finished. They closed it at 6 hours, and I was just after that. I didn't quite make it, and they like were shutting stuff down to go home, all the volunteers and stuff. And then they saw me coming, so they like leave it up, and then I run past, and then they shut it down. That's how slow I was. So it took me 6 hours. And that's when I was training every day, looking at my carbs, wearing my new Nikes. I was carbo loading, Gatorade, weather, shoes, socks, shirt, all my clothes, ideal weather. Like my marathon was 6 hours, but it was in ideal situations. And it was still 6 hours. And I'm trying to think of a nobleman going that same distance. Meet Jesus. That takes a lot of faith. That is a long, darn way to go. But he did it, and he did it for his son. And I can only imagine, like, picture this: like your son is so sick, you believe he's gonna die, and you leave his side to go find help, not from a doctor, not from any of this, just from someone that you've heard has the power to heal, and you travel an incredible distance uh, to get there. I'm guessing it took a lot longer than 6 hours to travel that distance. Probably he's a nobleman. He probably had some people with him, and he was a nobleman, so they were probably on horses or donkeys or something. They probably weren't running in their sandals or whatever. But like it was hard. I mean, I'm sure it took them a good chunk of time to make up that distance. Getting food and water on my marathon. There was people like every mile they just hand you water. It's pretty easy getting goo and stuff. And it wouldn't have been the same for the nobleman going to talk to Jesus. But he probably had, I don't know what he had, but he probably was not running. He probably had some help getting there. But he left his son on the verge of death, um, not not knowing if he would see his son again to save his life. He was a nobleman, so I'm guessing if he had errands to run or places to go, that he had people to do that for him. He would send people to go talk to Jesus or to go do whatever noblemen need done. I don't know. But I'm guessing he usually had people to do that for him. But in this case, he didn't send other people. He went himself, probably had some people with him. He went to find Jesus, um, which is incredible. I mean, to go that far. Um, I'm trying to think. I don't know time how long that took, and I'm in the Salt Lake City area, but I'm guessing it was probably like driving to Los Angeles or San Diego from here. You'd have to stay overnight on the way there, and you'd have to stay overnight on the way back. Like there's a lot of travel, several full days of travel to do this. Um, but he did it, and I love it. Just the fact that he shows up makes me so happy. Verse 47: When he heard that Jesus was come out of Judea into Galilee, he went unto him and besought him that he would come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. He went and asked Jesus to go to his house in Capernaum to heal his son. That takes an incredible amount of faith to travel an incredible distance, probably over 2 days. He gets there, he finds the person. I'm guessing if he's heard about Jesus from a marathon away, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people there waiting to talk to Jesus. He goes there and he asks Jesus to go back with him, back to Capernaum, to heal his son. Um, and I love the amount of faith to ask that. And I think with his understanding, the only miracles people had seen were in the presence of Jesus. Those miracles took place there. So obviously he was asking for Jesus to be with his son, because when Jesus is in your presence, that's when the miracles happen. Um, I love it. And his son was at the point of death. He leaves and goes and finds Jesus. Ah, good stuff. 48. Then said Jesus unto him, except ye see signs and wonders, you will not believe. And it says Jesus is saying this to the Roman, except ye see signs and wonders, you will not believe. I don't know what to make of this verse, because he believes. He just traveled a marathon and probably slept in a tent that night and then made the rest of the marathon to get there. Um, we'll find out in a little bit that this conversation took place around 1 p.m. I'm guessing that they traveled all that morning, stayed somewhere that night, and traveled the day before. So I'm guessing it took them, a bit to get there. And Jesus is saying, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. He came a long way, so it looks like he's believing. His belief has led to action in following Jesus. But I also think that it feels like a little like he's condemning this other person. But on the other side, like I think that that's probably how we all are. Um, we see signs and wonders that lead us to believe in Jesus. Otherwise, we might not believe in Jesus. If we didn't feel Jesus's love, if we didn't feel his interaction in our life, if we didn't feel all this, we wouldn't believe in him. If I didn't have all the experiences I've had in my life and seen his hand in my life, I probably wouldn't believe in him. So no. So he asked Jesus to go with him to save his son. Jesus says, except you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. 49. This is the nobleman's response. The nobleman saith unto him, Sir, come down ere my child die. So Jesus says that, and the nobleman's like, okay, will you come see my child so he doesn't die? Just like that. Like, he doesn't bring up any subjects. He doesn't talk about anything else. He just asks a second time to heal his son. So that's all he said. Twice now he's asked to heal his son. He doesn't seem to be arguing or anything. He just wants his son to live and knows that Jesus is the only way that that'll happen. Um, and again, probably a Roman, which is crazy. It's just really cool. 50. This is good stuff here. Jesus saith unto him, Go thy way, thy son liveth. And the man believed the word that Jesus had spoken unto him, and he went his way. Like, as far as we know, this whole conversation was like 20 seconds long. I'm guessing it was longer. Maybe, maybe not. There was probably a lot of people there. And maybe it it wasn't. I don't know. Anyway, Jesus says, you can go ahead and go. Your son lives. And the cool thing is, the man believed the word that Jesus had spoken unto him, and he went his way. So he traveled this marathon over 2 days with his entourage, and he gets there and he asks Jesus, and he asks to heal his son, says, Will you come with me? And Jesus says, You can go ahead and go, your son's alive. And he believed it. There's no doubt, there's no hesitation. He believed it, and he left. He left knowing that his son was alive, which is so awesome. He hadn't seen his son. He hadn't made it back to Capernaum. He hadn't done the marathon back the other way. He knew, and he left. And sounds like he was satisfied because he knew that um, his son was alive. In looking at it, like, I think he asked for Jesus to go to Capernaum because, like we said, Jesus was doing miracles and the miracles were happening in his presence. And I think might have been the first time that a miracle had been done far away. But this man had enough faith in Jesus to know that his son was healed. So he left. He wanted Jesus, his prayer, his request, his initial request was for Jesus to go with him to his house. I don't think in the end, the nobleman didn't care if Jesus came to his house or not. He just wanted his son to live. And he believed and left. I also like looking at different ways of looking at some of the miracles and stories in the New Testament. Jesus is also the Son, and he will live, and maybe there's similarities there. But Jesus too was unto death. As we'll see at the end of John, he was unto death also, and it looked hopeless, and he lived. 51. And he was now going down, his servants, and as he was going, oh my gosh, I can't read. And as he was now going down, his servants met him and told him, saying, Thy son liveth. So he's taken the marathon trek back, to Capernaum, and a bunch of his servants come and meet him. I don't know where on the road this is, but I don't know. But his servants, at some point, the son lives, the son was healed. Um, and they're so excited about it. It sounds like they go and tell the nobleman that his son lives. So they're making the journey to find the nobleman to tell him his son lives. Uh, 52. Then he inquired, then inquired he of them the hour when he began to amend. And they said unto him, Yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. So the nobleman asked the servants, What time did he live? What time did the fever go away? What time did he get better? And they said it was in the 7th hour. So that would be about 1 p.m. Is when the child lived. Um, and it happened to be um, the exact same time that he was talking to Jesus, which is really cool. So 1 p.m. He's talking to Jesus. Jesus says, "You can go home. Your son's healed." They probably start walking back that day. They make camp that night. They continue walking. They run into the servants the next day, and they said, "Yeah, your son is healed. He's better." Happened around 1 o'clock yesterday, which was the same time he was talking to Jesus. 53. So the father knew that it was at that same hour in the which Jesus said unto him, Thy son liveth, and himself believed, and his whole house. Once he heard that, like I feel like he already believed. Like he said, he made the trek over there, he made the trek back over probably the 3 days or more. He's gone like 50 miles. Like this has been a huge trek. And I like that they say thy son liveth, and himself believed, and his whole house. So now he believed. And Jesus had said, if you don't see signs, you're not going to believe. They had the sign, and he believed. And so does his whole house. So it sounds like all his family, his servants, and everyone that was there believed in the miracle that Jesus had performed. The last verse we're going to read here. This is again the second miracle that Jesus did when he was come out of Judea into Galilee. And not to get technical, but Jesus was in Cana and the son was in Capernaum. So he's a marathon away and he was healed there. The miracle took place over there, far away. Jesus didn't need to be there. He didn't need to be there, but the person believing and having faith in Jesus needed to be there. Jesus can perform a miracle in whatever way he wants, and we'll see that through the miracles. They happen in all sorts of different manners, but the key is someone always believes in Jesus. Someone believes that Jesus will heal them or someone they love. And maybe part of the miracle did take place with the nobleman because he believed. He believed in Jesus. And he might not have known who the Messiah was before this, but after this took place, I think a miracle occurred in the nobleman's heart and the hearts of those in the household because they know that the man named Jesus healed his son when he was asked to. I love it. I love this, and I'm excited to go on to more miracles. Uh, there's one other thing, like they did say the 7th hour. I think that's cool. Again, 7 is like the perfect number. Later in John, we read Jesus was led to his death around midday. Don't know if there's any correlation there or any importance to the number 7. Again, 7th hour, but it's kind of cool, and maybe there's additional faith or belief in the timing of that. Anyway, again, I think that Jesus lived and died to perform miracles. He lived a perfect life and he's performing miracles back then, but I think he is also performing them now for those who believe in his name and know that he will perform miracles in their lives, and he will. And I feel like we should expect miracles in our lives because that is what Jesus is here for. That's how he rolls. That's what he does.